my name is Maria Kissinger and my project is Does Stress Affect Heart Rate? The purpose of this experiment is to see if stress leads to a higher heart rate or higher BPM or beats per minute. This can help greatly if there are patients in hospitals who have an unusually high heart rate or BPM and the reason to this high heartbeat is unknown. Doctors can ask what are some potentially stressful tasks they have been doing before and see if any of those could lead to this high heartbeat. The hypothesis for this experiment is that stress does lead to a higher BPM. When in a stressful situation, like a bike race, for example, people get overheated and start breathing faster, which will lead to a higher blood pressure and a higher heartbeat. Although it may not be a huge change, it will be noticeable. The materials used for this experiment were 10 participants, a pulse oximeter, a computer or laptop, a printer, and a notebook for recording and analyzing data. So the procedure for this experiment is, first thing is find a difficult and stressful task. The task that is being used for this experiment is presenting for your science fair. Then, before presenting, ask the participant to rate his or her stress level on a scale of 1 to 10. Take and record the participant's BPM or beats per minute. Ask the participant to present his or her project to the class. Then, immediately after presenting, redo the BPM and stress level measurements. Then, lastly, analyze your results and come to a conclusion. My experiment was to test if stress affects heart rate. I was correct. My results of the experiment are that stress does affect heart rate. After going over my data for the majority of the people tested, their pulse went up on average 5 beats per minute, but their stress level went down 2 levels on average. I tested this experiment by testing people's pulses and asking for their stress level on the day they were presenting before and after they presented. If I were to repeat this experiment, I would take the pulses at different times. For example, I would take the pulse at the end immediately after they presented, and I would ask for their stress level then too. But then I would retake the pulse and ask for their stress level the next morning to get a more normal pulse and stress rate than when slightly nervous before presenting. My results of the experiment were that people's pulses rose on average 5 BPM. In doing my experiment, I found that people shaking tended to have a higher pulse rate level than those who were sitting still before. I also saw that people who reported a higher stress level also tended to have a higher pulse rate than those who reported a lower one. The average stress rate before was a 7 and the average stress rate after was a 5. So on average, people who were tested, their stress rate went down 2 levels after presenting. My project was to test if in a stressful situation or in a situation if people's pulses go up. The situation I chose to test people in was a classroom while they presented for science fair. For this project, I tested 10 of my classmates. On average, their pulses rose 5 BPM. The average pulse before presenting was 84 BPM, and the average pulse after presenting was 89 BPM. In conclusion, I think my experiment was successful, and I learned a lot about stress and the different things that can cause it. My hypothesis was correct, and the majority of the pulses did go up. I hope this can help other people in the future to learn more about stress. This is my average pulse before presenting, and this is my average pulse after presenting. This is my average stress rate before presenting, and that is my average stress rate after presenting. The more information I found out through the research of my project were some things that can cause stress and then some things that can help relieve it. Some things that may cause stress are not having much control or any control of the outcome of a situation. Also, having responsibilities that are found to be overwhelming and not having enough work or activities or change in our lives. Some things that can help relieve stress are exercising. Exercising lowers the body's hormones such as cholesterol in the long run. It also helps relieve endorphins. Another thing that will help relieve stress is spending time with friends and family. A study found that particularly in women, spending time with friends and family relieves a chemical called oxytocin. Oxytocin works as a natural mood changer, which helps make you happier. Thousands of years ago, we needed stress to help us survive the world and help us survive all the physical combat challenges that we had. Stress is inevitable, and without stress, we'd be entirely